Today is all about the Musketeer / Arbalest. We're going to do mostly the Arbalest first, but we are going to mention the Musketeer abilities and the other equipment. We're just not going to go over the Musketeer's abilities because, shocker, it's exactly the same as the Arbalest. Thus, there's really no point to go over two people with the same abilities and repeating myself twice, so we're doing a 2-in-1 here for her background. A runaway turned soldier. The Arbalest is the definitive backline fighter, able to rain suppressing fire down on the enemy, snipe high-profile targets, and apply powerful, effective first aid. She is a rallying point, a turret, a beacon in the dark. I think they dressed her up a little more. She can certainly do all of those things. I think the only thing I kind of take serious issue with is the snipe high-profile targets. You're going to see why, because we're going to check her damage and armor next. And you're going to kind of scratch your head on this, but let's go to it. Before we look at her weapons, the Arbalest takes her name from the massive crossbow she carries into battle. Able to decimate enemies at range with a dizzying array of ammunition, she wears medium plate for increased protection against the volleys she knows are coming. Yeah, let's just get into this. We'll look at her armor and then we'll kind of talk about it. Well, her armor and weapon. So Millicent is her final upgrade here. And as you can see, this is where I kind of take issue. It's a 7 to 14 base damage. That is atrocious. You call her a backline sniper with 7 to 14 damage. Maybe the game designers were thinking, and once we get to her very first ability, they're like, well, once she gets a mark, that turns to 14 to 28. That's so broken. I still wouldn't call 14 to 28 broken, because the leper, I believe, is 13 to 26 naturally, which means he's like 1 point away without a mark. Now, obviously, the leper is very limited in his row versatility and accuracy, but still, it's just, even with a mark, you can not be one-shotting people. To make this hero a lot better, I think they should have decreased the RNG gap. If you don't want to raise the maximum, okay, that's fine, but maybe even 10 to 15. Just like doing single digits in your final weapon when you're supposed to be killing the back row is just so demoralizing. I think even 10 to 16 would be perfect. 20 to 32, that's not broken. That's a mark and then a one shot, you know, that's two people killing one person. That's about normal, so I don't really think it's all that broken. Now the base crit of 10 is actually pretty good, and the speed of 5 is slow, which makes it sad because she has low speed and she has low damage without someone setting her up. Now you can argue that the low speed actually allows her to function in a mark lineup better, and that is technically true. If you want the mark to work for her, she's really going to have to go either near the end or she's going to have to be doing the one marking, so you kind of have to choose between that. She functions very well off the mark, so you would assume and hope she does go near the end of the line, but at that point the back row is already going, which is why some people probably have such a big issue, but we'll talk about that as we get into the skills. Her armor is Survivor, a dodge base of 20, HP 47, actually a little higher end of the HP, but much lower end of the dodge base of 20. Anything that happens, she's pretty much going to get hit, so to mix it in, she wears the plate armor to pretty much save her, because she knows she's not going to be able to dodge whatever's coming. Therefore, skull tosses, tempting goblets, eldritch pulls, pushes, whatever have you, they're probably going to hit her most times. Just keep that in mind when you bring her along. Sniper shot. Used in positions 3 and 4, and hits 2 to 4 in the enemy lineup. It's pretty good road versatility against the enemy. 3 and 4 is really where the Arbalest is meant to sit, so it's really not an issue at all. It is obviously ranged. Now the accuracy at 115 is rather high, which means you probably won't miss, which is good. Now we will come back to that damage issue later. It is a critical modifier of 9%, so we are actually talking almost 20%, but even if she gets a critical, it's still only like 21 damage without any other modifiers. And 21, I'm sorry, it's still not killing most back row people, so she's going to need a lot of help from damage, increased trinkets, possibly quirks, or obviously that oh sweet mark stuff down at the bottom. She gets 100% damage versus mark and another 13% critical against marked. We are now talking without trinkets and other quirks. She has a 32% chance to critically strike against someone with a mark, and also now that sweet 14 to 28 damage, which can potentially be 42 crit. That's pretty darn good for just a mark. However, she almost seems reliant on it, thus characters who seem reliant on one thing are often troublesome to put into your party. I think maybe in the earlier levels she's a lot better because the enemy's HP pools are lower and the marks and all that stuff, but I think once you get to champion level she can be a little underwhelming, and you don't want to always be babysitting her with marks when there's people with just much higher damage than her. Suppressing Fire. This one has actually won me over a little bit. I tell you what, I really like this ability on my Musketeers and Arbalest. It's 115 accuracy, once again pretty high end of the accuracy. We do have a damage modification of 80%, thus this is really going to be a 1 to 3, 2 to 4 damage ability, not too great. And a -6 on critical modifiers, so with nothing else, it's going to be a 3 to 4, it's going to be a 4% chance to critically strike. And even if you do, it's going to be like 6. It'll just be more for the stress heal than anything. I will give a quick shout out though, obviously critical chances do increase your debuff target chances, so that would go to 160% for those 2 base chances. But let's talk about what those are. -20 accuracy and -19% critical strike chance. This is insane. -19% critical strike chance. I don't know how many people in the game really have above that naturally, so the enemy would probably have to be getting buffed for that to actually be applicable to like pretty much not reduce everyone to 0 or at least 1 to 2%. There's probably some enemies out there with like a solid 20-25, I just don't know it, but if you use this 2 rounds in a row, it does do damage, which is nice, so you can finish people about 2 HP, but you can get to people to -40 accuracy and -38% crit chance. Now you probably can't tell me someone has well above 38% crit. And the crit chance actually can't be overlooked because critical strikes from stress damage abilities can easily add 30 to 40 stress depending on the quirks you have or items you have that increase stress. And the -40 accuracy, let's say we take a Bone Royalty. I believe I looked up their Tempting Gauntlet, it's like 112 to 113, we'll just say 112 for now, but it's over 110. So you drop that to 70, if we take like the standard dodge which is like 25, we take that down to a 45% chance to hit just after 2 turns. That's really impressive, and if you manage to get your dodge to even like 40, we're talking like 30% chances to hit now. So if you like lineups that have to focus on the frontliners first, Suppressing Fire could do that for you. So it has become easily one of my favorite abilities on the Musketeer / Arbalest, and I do use it often when I'm not sure what to do and I need to take care of the front row targets first. Sniper's Mark. So this is accuracy of 120, even higher than the other 2 abilities we looked at so far. Obviously it's a mark ability, most of them don't do damage, and we are debuffing the target for 30 dodge, which is pretty darn massive. Average dodge enemies probably like 20 to 25. The higher end ones get to 32, even up to 42 I believe on a Virago. Virago might be 49 to 50, I can't remember. But there are enemies, I think even Mad Men eclipse 40. So if you do manage to hit them, it'll be about an 80% chance without other trinkets or quirks. Thus you -30 dodge, suddenly, boom, right there you are. Or this is a perfect one to do against the Shrieker, because they'll be decreasing their dodge as well. And some people really love the marking strategy against the Shrieker. I'm not going to talk about Sniper's Mark 2 too much more, because there's actually a trinket that I'm going to bring in, 2 trinkets actually. They're going to kind of develop on the Sniper's Mark, but for the most part, you know what marks are, you know how they work, positions 2 to 4. They set up other people such as the Houndmaster, the Bounty Hunter, anyone else who obviously gets increased damage, even the Grave Robber. So anyone who gets increased damage against the mark, you can feel free to use her. And we're going to talk about how to maximize her efficiency with her mark or functioning off of other marks. Bola. Bola is an interesting one. Once again, accuracy of 115, damage is -50%, so we're talking 3 to 7, once again not the best. We do get a crit modifier though, so it is actually 15%. Now honestly the reason why you're using this is for the knockback. Occasionally shuffling the enemy lineup can be kinda useful, but what I mostly use it for actually is just that 1-2 connection, because Sniper Fire can't hit that. And the next ability we're going to look at, Blind Fire, actually is the only other ability that can really hit the front row. Thus Bola is not a bad option. Sometimes the mixing up actually works in your favor. And as I said, it can still critically strike, and sometimes knocking back people does truly help your situation. For the most part though, I usually don't keep Bola on, but sometimes I will if I really need to hit the front row target and I don't want to rely on the next ability, Blind Fire. Blind Fire. Random target ranged, accuracy only 95. We are actually talking leper territory. All of her other abilities have easily been 115 or above, so we are talking a 20 accuracy drop here for a minus 10 damage as well. So really blind fire is talking about 6 to 12, 6 to 13 depending on how the game rounds for you. Only a crit modifier of plus 4, so about 15%. Now we do get a buff speed of 5. The buff speed is interesting, so it's almost like, you know what, if I hit a target, it's okay, because I'm really just looking to increase my speed. And maybe that is all you truly are looking to do. You're looking to, you know this fight's going to go on for multiple rounds, so you say, you know what, screw it, I'm going to hit someone random, still do like a mediocre damage, and I'm going to get 5 speed, which will probably put her near the top end, because 5 speed to 10 speed will probably put her in the top, at least 4th, I would argue, of speeds. If you have anyone else with her to increase her speed, or if you use this twice, you'll definitely be one of the first ones to go. I don't know what you'd want to do after that, but if you need her to go first, absolutely, she will be going first then. I just think the minus 10% damage is a little weak, and the accuracy of 95 is pitiful. If it was like blind fire, 95 accuracy, but like plus 50% damage, you're like, ooh, you know, now I'm getting to that range of, that would be like what, 10 to 17, you're like, okay, that's respectable, but the trade-off is I don't choose who I hit. But no, you get garbage accuracy and garbage damage, so I think blind fire is a really weird ability. It will obviously hit the front row if the enemy is left, but other than that, I just don't think it's one for greater abilities, which is sometimes why I take Bola. It's a much higher accuracy, and honestly, they both have damage modifications, so it's like, who really cares? They're almost around the same amount of damage at that point. But I think this is one of her weaker abilities for sure. Battlefield Bandage. Heals target 4 to 5, and what it's most famous for is that 38% healing received. I'm going to tell you now, the only thing that really bothers me about this ability is that it's 38% and not 40. I feel like they should have just been kind and just made it 40%, but maybe that didn't work out for their initial value, I don't know. But anywho, Battlefield Bandage, well actually, it has a couple of situations it really synergizes with. The Arbalest, you can make her one of these utility roles where you may actually never use her for damage. You may have like Suppressing Fire, you may have Mark, you may have Flare, which is the next ability, and you may have Battlefield Bandage on. Battlefield Bandage, obviously by itself, the first round, 4 to 5, it's kind of weak. It's very Crusader-like in his Battlefield Medicine as well. However, obviously with her, if you pick one very HP stack heavy target and you just use it maybe 3 turns in a row, you can get a respectable amount of HP flowing. Or what she's probably more famous for is using this, and then you can use a Vestal or an Occultist, or maybe even if you do want to add a Battlefield Medicine from the Crusader in after that. But most commonly followed up by a Vestal or an Occultist. This helps an Occultist's range kind of go much higher, because obviously plus 40% healing, 10s from an Occultist now go to practically a 14. And if you have any other healing items on the Occultist, that could even easily go to 15, 16. You can see how that begins to snowball in your favor, even if you get like a lower number like 8 or something. So the Arbalest can really help the Occultist's random RNG get a lot more towards the middle to middle high with one Battlefield Bandage. Imagine if you use 2, suddenly you can almost recover large amounts of HP even with the Vestal at that point, because if you can get a Vestal, they heal for a 10 and then you get like 80% more healing received, that's like 17, 18, that's insane for one heal. And then the Occultist, who knows how high you'd get, you know, you could get into the 30s without a critical if you really wanted to. And another weird mechanic, and I'm going to try to capture it, it's not going to be too hard to do, but the healing received actually works on food as well outside of combat, because the healing received is not battle specific. Thus, you can actually have a couple of turns outside of combat to still have that active. And since food does count as healing, you can actually stock up on a little more HP from the food that you wouldn't be able to if you didn't have Battlefield Bandage on. So it's a very interesting combination and mechanic, but it can certainly save you a couple of extra HP points as you walk through dungeons. Rallying Flare. Now this is the one that it's got a lot and it has a couple of different uses, and I do think it's a strong ability situationally. Is it something you want all the time? Probably not, but it can certainly be a good pull you out of some issues during boss fights, and also certain dungeons where obviously stealth units are a big problem. So as an accuracy of 115, I believe you do have to hit the target. I believe people can dodge this. It does 0 damage, so don't expect any criticals. And what it means by bypass stealth is like it will obviously hit the stealth individual because its main function is to de-stealth the individual. So it has to bypass stealth to hit the stealth individual, that's all that means. The +7 torch can actually be really nice because that's almost 10, and that can keep stress damage dealers in bright light all the time. Thus you can kind of counteract them by A, bringing them out of stealth, and B, you can also increase that torch to radiant light and try to keep it there so their stress damaging abilities does not keep adding up. And while we're talking about stress, there is a 67% chance for each individual in your party to lose 3 stress on their self, which is actually pretty darn good since there's a lot of other what you would consider great effects of this. De-stealths, and what we now see is it clears stuns and clears marks targets. This may be one of the main reasons why you actually want your Arbalest going first, because let's say the round before that someone got stunned, i.e. your healer or a key damage dealer during a boss fight, you really need them to go. Well, if the Arbalest gets to go first, guess what? She now gets to clear that stun and that person gets to act normally. So she essentially saves around while reducing stress and all that good stuff and clear marks. For those of you who are more veterans of the game, or at least have played the game for probably like what, 10 hours at least, maybe 5, there is a boss in the game that will have a little piggy. I'm not going to say much more than that. He will mark you and have a other friend of his smack you into the ground like a hammer and a nail. The Arbalest essentially negates that boss. I don't want to say too much more because if you really haven't gotten to the game much yet, I don't want to say where that boss is at, but if you have played the game, if you've played even that boss once, you should know who I'm talking about. And if you don't, your second time you'll walk in there and be like, oh shoot, I brought an Arbalest because it's going to smack you in the face right away. But she is almost the complete counter to that boss. She will just utterly wreck his day, making the boss so easy. And you do essentially want the Arbalest though to be a little slower in that fight because you want to wait for the marks to come out and then to clear them. So it's very important that she goes after the marks have been placed because obviously she doesn't want to go before it. Thus you want to keep her speed much lower, which is usually not the problem, which is really good. I'm just going to continue the trend and keep placing down 4 trinkets, and what I have here today is actually a little bit of a combination of everything. It's damage and utility, which is really important. I do believe you should have a combo for all the characters because most of the characters don't have to be one thing. Some certainly do, but not all of them, which is really good and which makes Darkest Dungeon a great game. The Quick Draw Charm is an interesting one. I use it for the speed most times than not. The crit's not necessarily something I usually rely on, but the reason why I have this on is it'll get her to 13 speed, which means she can do one of 2 things depending on how you want your party to go. She can be the first marker if you want someone such as a bounty hunter, man-at-arms, or literally everyone else in your party. Let's say you have like a bounty hunter, highwayman, and a houndmaster. All of them can function off the mark very well, and you just decide, you know what, I value the -30 dodge on the Arbalest more, and I want her to set up the other 3 individuals, so I'm going to sacrifice her as the marker. Works perfectly for that. Or there's a 12% crit chance on this, which means suppressing fire gets instantly better, has higher chances to crit, which increases that chance debuff of 140% to 160%, all that much more, and you get to do it right away, which means you get to do it before those high speedier individuals in the back go, thus reducing their accuracy by 20 and their critical chance by 19%. I think the Quick Draw Charm has that nice added benefit to it. And then after that, she does -3 speed, so maybe then she can start functioning off of other people's marks if that's how you want to set it up. Berserk Charm. This one's interesting. I usually don't like it because of that -5 accuracy. I don't really care too much about the virtue chance. I know it's plus 15% stress, but if you know how to take care of your back row decently, this isn't a huge problem most of the time. So what's really cool about this one is really the speed and the damage, because once again this brings her up to a respectable 8 and then 15% damage as well. Thus, if you really want to actually, you could pair the Quick Draw Charm and this together. It'd be kind of a weird combination, but between the 15% damage, the 3 speed, and the Quick Draw Charm speed, you would definitely be going first. And you'd be looking at around 9 to 16 damage along with 12% more crit. Along with the sniper shot, you could be actually one-shotting people at 24 to 25 crits in the back row, which I think is almost exactly what Cultist Switches are. So with the Lucky Critical, you could actually be removing Cultist Switch right in the beginning of the fight immediately, thus you don't have to really worry about the increased stress damage, and the 3 speed will actually cancel the Quick Draw Charm's -3 speed, keeping her at a nice 5 speed after that. I'm not saying this is the one and only combination you can have with the Trinkets, however, I do think it is a respectable early to mid game, because the Berserk Charm and Quick Draw Charms, they're not like early game, but you can definitely get them in veteran level areas. Thus you can kind of avoid that awkward transition of apprentice to veteran and veteran to champion, with some decent combinations of Trinkets and before other bosses start showing up, or before you get the hero's last and final good item, which we're about to look at. Wrathful Bandana. So obviously Arbalest only. Sometimes I like to pull in just only hero trinkets because we don't always give them the most love because some aren't the greatest, but in this situation, what I really love is that plus 25% damage in the back and the plus 30% debuff skill chance. With the Wrathful Bandana, and these numbers are off my head because I'm not always sure how Darkest Dungeon does it, but you could easily be between 10 and 17 and 10 and 18, depends how they want to round that up. If you have like Warrior of Light quirk on, or if you have something else, that could easily be 10 to 18, 10 to 19, even 11 to 20, depending on how much you want to all in on her damage. And 11 to 20, I will tell you that is an impressive amount of damage with a high accuracy and a higher critical chance. That's when she starts getting pretty respectable, but she does need a lot of items and trinkets and situations to get her there. Now, the debuff skill chance, the plus 30%, I mean, that's just amazing. Now, what I kind of take issue with, and I shouldn't say take issue with, but if I'm getting 25% damage, most likely I will not be using Suppressing Fire. Thus, I don't know if I'd be using Suppressing Fire as much. However, just on the off chance you want to gear her away from the damage to do Suppressing Fire, that would almost always go through, and it's very good. Obviously, you're going to want probably a main healer, because the minus 50% healing skills, her healing bandages essentially just get you off death's door. I know her healing isn't the greatest already, so you're thinking what, 4 to 5 down to 2 to 3? Yeah, it's not a lot, but if you do plan on using her to be the individuals to kind of get people a little more health, this item really takes her out of the utility role and into the damage, or I know I said takes her out of the utility role, but it will either be Suppressing Fire or Sniper Shot with this item essentially. Wolf's Tassel. Now this is obviously a trophy from a certain boss, and it might be in the name, but if you haven't played the game yet, it's not really a big spoiler. You're gonna figure out eventually, and obviously I'm not saying how to beat the boss, but obviously it's that additional damage versus mark, accuracy, and the plus 5% against creatures that are size 2 or larger. So, you know, you figured it's just good for obviously accuracy, so if you want her to go slower so she gets the additional accuracy and damage, stacked upon the fact she already gets 100% more damage from the mark, she can essentially ensure one shot now, so Wolf's Tassel can be pretty good on her. And to finish it up, we're going to talk about her camping skills. As on the battlefield, so too at camp. The Arbalest splits her time at rest, providing expert first aid care, and preparing for the next leg of the journey with optimized marching plans and a fresh, taut bowstring. It's pretty good, you'll figure it out, but yeah, that for the most part will sum up all of her abilities. Field Dressing. Time cost of 2, very cheap, and I believe the benefits are outstanding. 75% chance to heal 35% of HP, we're talking percent. You got a big beefy boy sitting at 60 HP, boom, you're dropping about 22 HP on him. That is just absurd. And a 25% chance for 50, so then you're talking 30 HP and remove of bleeding, which can save you using a bandage. I think for the time cost of 2, it's always worth keeping around, because why not heal someone for 20 HP? Obviously for lower HP individuals, you might not want to use it on them. You might want more traditional methods of food or in-battle healing. Marching Plan. Time cost of 3, all companions plus 2. For time cost of 3, sometimes if it's in the early game, I don't have a lot of abilities on, plus 2 speed in the early to veteran, that's huge. That's a huge deal, you know. It's not like this bumps up 1, 1, 2, 2 as you increase. Plus 2 speed can be the matter of just everyone going first in most of your early to veteran rounds. Thus it's pretty good, but at that point I start kind of phasing this out. It's nice to have it, but I often don't use it. Now, ability I do use a lot because it's very good is Restring Crossbow. It's only a time cost of 3, which is really good because someone like a Highwayman, the Unparalleled Finesse, and I think it's Clean Guns or something, I can't remember. Those are a time cost of 4 and they get about similar benefits. Now, I think why this one's a time cost of 3 is the minus 2 speed. Don't worry about that because you can take that off with a medicinal herb, as I often do because I don't like her sitting at 3 speed. It's very slow and not helpful. But for 10 accuracy, which is huge, I mean we're talking like 125 accuracy. If someone with 30 dodge is still 95, and remember 30 is like the average to higher end average. So even if they have like 35, 40 accuracy, you still have like a 90% chance to hit, plus 20% more damage. Once again, we're looking at like 9 to 16, really good. And 8% critical, so you're talking about most of your abilities doing between 25 and 30% critical chance, which will probably get a good crit 1 every 3 fights to remove a back row individual almost immediately from the fight, which is really good. And then we get to Triage. Triage, all companions heal 20% HP. It's pretty good if everyone's hurt. Just for one more time cost, don't use field dressing, just use this. Take the 15% hit in HP and get everyone a solid 8 to 10 health easily, depending on how large their HP pool is at that point in the game. Obviously, this is a slightly weaker ability earlier in the game because no one has a large HP pool, but definitely in the veteran levels where people have a lot of HP, this is certainly a lot better than just doing field dressing on one person. Overall, the Arbalest sounds good in theory. She has a lot of good abilities and she can be useful. I will never try to completely crap on a character in this game or a hero in this game. I know it's popular in some parts of the community to probably crap on certain heroes. She has her weaknesses, but she can certainly have her strengths. You can certainly take her into dungeons and use her effectively. I just think she needs certain help from other individuals, and that's why she can be a little bit of a liability. But she certainly can have massive damage if set up with marks and camp skills and the trinkets. She can actually offer pretty good support with suppressing fire and battlefield medicine, and Flare is a rather underrated ability that can really save your butt from additional damage, additional stress damage, and allow your 3 other people to take care of individuals you'd have to wait 2 or more turns to hit or rely on riposte to hit. So I think the Arbalest and Musketeer do have some good stuff to them. I just think they fall a little short in their initial base damage, and they do need a lot of help to get that to be respectable. Thank you so much for watching. Like and subscribe below.